At 1958, two Israeli F-15I Ra'am fighters screamed through Lebanese airspace at 480 knots, just seconds away from their first weapons release. Each bird is hauling 8,000 pounds of precision-guided munitions, 4 GBU-31 JDAMs that are about to turn a quiet Thursday evening into absolute chaos across southern Lebanon. The lead pilot checks his management display one last time. Green lights across the board. Two of his bombs pack BLU-109 penetrator warheads designed to punch through reinforced concrete like it's cardboard. The other two carry Mk-84 general-purpose warheads, 945 pounds of tritonol explosive that'll flatten anything within a city block. In exactly 45 seconds, he needs to pickle off his first bomb over Tool. Then he's got 19 minutes to hit 5 more targets spread across 30 kilometers before every SAM site in Lebanon wakes up. The math is brutal. Miss one release window by even 2 seconds, and the whole sequence falls apart. His weapons systems officer in the back seat is already heads down in the LANTIRN targeting pod, using its thermal camera to verify their first target. Some auto repair shop that Israeli intelligence says is hiding a lot more than broken down cars. The infrared image is crystal clear despite the darkness. In the wingman's aircraft, an identical scene plays out as both crews prepare to rain steel across Nabati Governorate. The pilot takes a deep breath and pushes the stick forward slightly, entering a shallow dive toward the first release point. The F-15I's twin engines, each pumping out 29,100 pounds of thrust in afterburner. Time to go to work. Despite how cool this jet looks, the real magic happens in the back seat, where the Wizzo is juggling more data than a Wall Street trading floor. The F-15I's battle management computer processes thousands of variables every second. Wind speed at different altitudes, GPS satellite geometry, target evaluation, and even the Earth's rotation. All this gets crunched into one simple question. Where exactly does the pilot need to release each bomb? The LANTIRN pod you see here is the Wizzo's window into what's below. Its forward-looking infrared sensor is cooled down to minus 196 degrees Celsius, colder than liquid nitrogen, which allows it to spot the heat from a human body at a distance of 15 kilometers. Tonight, it's painting each target building in perfect thermal clarity, showing hot vehicle engines, warm rooftops, and even the heat seeping through windows. The pod's acquisition sequence starts with area search mode, scanning a 60-degree cone beneath the aircraft. Once it detects the temperature differential between a building and cooler ground, it switches to a narrow field of view, zooming in with 20x magnification. Even while moving at hundreds of miles per hour, the stabilization system compensates for aircraft movement with sub-milliradian precision. Even in turbulence, the crosshairs stay locked on target as if they were nailed there. And here's where bomb-to-target matching gets even more complex. The computer runs a priority matrix considering penetration requirements, fuse settings, and blast patterns. It's like thinking twice before saying something to your wife. You don't just blurt it out, you calculate how hard it'll hit, when to say it, and what kind of damage it might do. Tool's auto repair shop is situated in a densely populated neighborhood. The BLU-109's delayed fuse will ensure the explosion occurs within the structure, minimizing collateral damage. Mount Rion needs the opposite, an instantaneous surface burst from the Mk-84 to maximize the pressure wave reflection off the mountainside. Both aircraft share a real-time target list updated 128 times per second. When the lead Wizzo designates Tool, it instantly shows as a sign on the wingman's display. If one aircraft has to abort its run, the system automatically reassigns targets to ensure that nothing is missed and nothing is hit twice. This deconfliction occurs faster than human reaction time, preventing waste munitions from being deployed on already destroyed targets. Meanwhile, the synthetic aperture radar operates in ground-moving target indicator mode, differentiating between static buildings and any vehicles trying to flee the target areas. The radar processes returns using the Doppler shift. If something is moving faster than 5 kilometers per hour, it appears as a bright moving dot against the static background. This real-time intelligence feeds directly into the targeting computer, ensuring they hit buildings that's still worth targeting. Down below, Lebanese radar operators are straight up not having a good time. What started as 2 contacts crossing the border has somehow multiplied into an entire phantom air force. One moment their screens show a 4-ship formation heading for Beirut. The next moment, 6 aircraft are vectoring toward Tripoli. Wait, no, now it's back to 2, but they're 50 kilometers from where they were 3 seconds ago. These ghost contacts are courtesy of the EL-LA-222 jamming pods, hanging from the F-15I's bellies. These aren't your basic noise jammers that just blast static like a broken radio. These things are smart. They listen to each radar pulse, record it, then play it back with tiny modifications. Delay the return signal by a few microseconds, and suddenly you appear 10 kilometers farther away. Mess with the frequency shift, and your speed looks completely wrong. The digital radio frequency memory technology inside these pods is essentially a sophisticated liar. When a radar pulse hits the aircraft at, say, 2.8 GHz from a P-18 spoon rest, the DRFM samples that exact frequency, records the pulse characteristics, and then rebroadcasts multiple versions. One return might show the aircraft at the correct location, but at the wrong altitude. Another shows correct altitude, but adds 40 knots to the speed. A third creates an entirely false target 15 kilometers to the east. It's like getting 3 texts from your ex at once. One says she's downstairs, one says she's in Paris, and the third says she never left. Technically, any could be true, so your brain locks up trying to figure out which one's real. All these false returns hit the radar receiver within microseconds of each other, creating an unsolvable puzzle. The pilots know their jamming is working through their own radar warning receivers. When the EL-L-8222, known as the 8222, is effectively spoofing a threat, the RWR shows a distinctive dashed line symbol instead of a solid, indicating the threat radar isn't achieving a valid track. The audio changes too, from the angry buzz of a lock-on to an intermittent warble that sounds almost confused. And the jammer is so smart that it even has pre-programmed defenses for the most likely encountered threats. For example, the P-18 in Toul operates between 0.85 and 0.94 GHz. Old school VHF that's actually harder to jam than modern radars because of its long wavelength. However, the EL-L-8222 has specific programs for Soviet-era systems, which exploit known vulnerabilities in their signal processing. However, the SA-6 battery 20 kilometers away operates in the 4 to 8 GHz range that the 8222 defeats by creating false elevation angles. After ensuring that all enemy radars in the immediate area are jammed, the formation lead checks his tactical display. Multiple radar strobes indicate active sensors, but none achieve the steady lock indication that would precede a missile launch. The jammers are creating what electronic warfare officers call a targeting ambiguity bubble, roughly 40 kilometers in diameter. Inside this bubble, radar returns are so corrupted that fire control solutions become impossible. The Lebanese defenders can see something is there, but can't do anything but watch. Now is the perfect time to strike. At 19:59 local time, the lead pilot rolls into a 15-degree dive. The first target, Hassan Faz Auto Repair Shop in Toul, is coming up fast. At 520 knots, he's covering almost 300 meters every second. The release window for an accurate drop is just 3.7 seconds long. Too early, and the bomb can't glide far enough. Too late, and it overshoots. The Wizzo calls good solution as the targeting computer shows a solid lock. The pilot's thumb hovers over the weapon's release button, waiting for the exact moment when all the parameters align. The green brackets on his HUD converge, and rifle 1. A solid thump shakes the aircraft as explosive bolts fire, kicking the first 2,000-pound bomb into the slipstream. The GBU-31's GPS brain immediately wakes up, acquiring satellite signals and deploying its guidance fins. It has 43 seconds of flight time to make any necessary corrections, aiming for a near vertical impact that'll drive the BLU-109 warhead deep into the building before detonation. The JDAM's autonomy is remarkable. Once released, it's essentially a robot with one job: hit these exact coordinates. The GPS receiver tracks signals from at least 4 satellites, calculating position updates 10 times per second. But GPS alone isn't enough. Signals can be jammed or spoofed. That's where the backup INS comes in. Ring laser gyroscopes measure every tiny rotation, while accelerometers track linear movement. The bomb's computer constantly compares GPS and INS data. If they disagree by more than 5 meters, it defaults to INS only, accepting slightly reduced accuracy over the potential risk of being spoofed into missing entirely. Weather adds another variable. Tonight, there's a 15-knot crosswind from the west at release altitude, shifting to 22 knots from the southwest at 5,000 feet. The JDAM's fins constantly adjust, making corrections up to 20 times per second. Temperature matters too. The air density at 18,000 feet is approximately 50% of that at sea level, which affects the bomb's glide ratio. All these factors were loaded into the mission computer during pre-flight, but the bomb's own sensors were verified and updated continuously during its fall. Coordination between aircrafts requires Rolex-level precision. The wingman maintains exactly 3.7 nautical miles of lateral separation and 15 seconds of temporal spacing. This prevents their radar warning receivers from mutual interference while ensuring both can hit targets in the Sawana complex within their 2-second window. They're flying an aerial ballet at 500 knots, where being off by 50 meters, or 2 seconds, turns a coordinated strike into sequential impacts with half the effectiveness. There is no time to admire the shot as they begin heading toward their next release point. The pilot cranks the F-15I into a hard left turn, loading 6.5 Gs onto the airframe as he points the nose at Mount Rion. His G-suit inflates rock hard, squeezing his legs and abdomen to keep blood in his brain. In the back seat, the Wizzo is already setting up the next shot, switching munitions on the weapons panel for the next set of targets. By 20:03, all 8 bombs are in the air, each following its own path through the darkness. But did they calculate their windows correctly? The first impact comes at 20:04:17. Through the LANTIRN pod's thermal eye, the pilot watches Hassan Fa's auto repair shop simply cease to exist. The BLU-109 penetrator hits the roof at 267 meters per second, fast enough that the concrete might as well be wet paper. The warhead punches through 3 floors before its delay fuse runs out. Then, 550 pounds of high explosive turns everything inside into was-were. The blast physics are brutal. The Comp B explosive filler detonates at a velocity of 8,092 meters per second, creating an initial pressure spike of 2.7 million psi at the point of detonation. This pressure drops off with the cube of the distance, but within a confined structure, reflection off the walls creates complex pressure patterns. The initial positive pressure phase lasts about 10 milliseconds, followed by a longer negative phase that literally sucks debris back toward the blast center. It's this push-pull effect that causes the characteristic implosion pattern of penetrator warheads. Strike verification happens through multiple sensors. The LANTIRN pod detects the thermal bloom, a spike to over 2,000 degrees Celsius that saturates the infrared sensors momentarily. As the pod's automatic gain control adjusts, secondary indicators appear. Structural collapse is indicated by a rapid temperature change across the building footprint, while secondary explosions from stored materials create additional blasts. The Wizzo marks target destroyed on his display, and the system automatically logs GPS coordinates, time of impact, and bomb ID for the post-mission report. The mountain strikes showcase different physics entirely. When the Mk-84 hits Mount Rion, it creates what weapons engineers call a Mach stem, where the direct blast wave meets the reflected wave from the mountain surface, creating a reinforced shock front that propagates along the ground with doubled overpressure. The 945 pounds of tritonol explosive generates a fireball 50 meters in diameter, with the blast wave initially traveling at Mach 20 before rapidly decelerating. But the real showstopper comes at Sawana. Both F-15s have timed their drops, so 2 Mk-84s arrive within 1.7 seconds of each other. When those blast waves meet, they don't just add together, they multiply. The overlapping pressure waves create a blast zone where the overpressure hits 52 psi. For reference, 5 psi will knock down a house. 52 psi turns buildings into dust and makes vehicles fly like leaves in a hurricane. But just as soon as they release them, the radar warning receivers light up like pinball machines as SA-6 batteries come online. Through the RWR display, the pilot sees the distinctive symbol for the 1S-91 straight flush radar, the fire control system for SA-6 gainful missiles. The signal strength indicator shows -45 dBm, meaning the radar has them painted solid. Launch detection occurs 3 seconds later, as UV sensors detect the missile's exhaust plume. The egress sequence is a carefully choreographed mix of speed, altitude, and deception. Both F-15Is execute a diving turn toward the Mediterranean, accelerating through 600 knots while the radar altimeters show them dropping through 10,000 feet. At precisely 15-second intervals, they release chaff bundles, aluminum-coated glass fibers cut to half the wavelength of the threat radar. Each bundle blooms into a radar-reflective cloud roughly 100 meters across, creating a trail of false targets behind the fleeing jets. The ALQ-135 internal jammers begin outputting maximum power across all frequencies. Power amplifiers pump out 1,500 watts of precisely tuned interference, creating range gate pull-off against the missile seekers. The technique is elegant. Gradually shift the false return away from the aircraft's actual position, causing the missile to track an empty sky. Combined with the chaff and diving profile, it creates enough confusion to defeat the relatively primitive analog seekers of the SA-6. By 2011, both fighters are feet wet over the Mediterranean, heading home with empty racks and enough fuel for a victory lap. Behind them, 6 columns of smoke mark what used to be priority targets. The whole operation, from takeoff to safe return, took just 26 minutes. Bye for now.